He wasn't what you'd expect. He didn't live in a basement. He didn't have a long criminal record. He wasn't loud. He wasn't messy. In fact, Patrick Kearney was quiet, intelligent, polite, the kind of man you trust to fix your radio or help you carry groceries. Born in East Los Angeles in 1939 and raised in Texas, Kearney was described as a bright child with a shy demeanor. He was small for his age and suffered relentless bullying throughout his school years. Quiet, withdrawn, but academically gifted. He graduated early, joined the Air Force, became an electronics engineer. By the 1970s, Kearney had moved back to Southern California. He worked in aerospace, the booming industry of the era. To friends and neighbors, he was just a soft-spoken man with a good job and a long-term partner, David Hill. They lived together peacefully in a modest home in Redondo Beach. There were no fights, no drama, no noise, but something dark simmered beneath that calm surface, something no one around him ever saw. In the early 1970s, reports began to surface of young men, mostly hitchhikers, drifters, and runaways, vanishing near the highways of Los Angeles. Weeks or months later, their dismembered bodies would turn up along desolate desert roads or rest stops. Some were never identified, some were never found at all. The press started using a name, the Freeway Killer. But no one guessed there was more than one, and no one suspected the quiet engineer with the clean car and quiet smile. Not yet. This is the story of Patrick Kearney, one of America's most prolific serial killers, a man who admitted to 28 murders and is believed to be responsible for even more, a man who didn't kill for pleasure, but for control, for silence, for peace, and no one saw it coming. Patrick Kearney didn't hunt his victims in the dead of night. He didn't stalk alleys or wear a mask. He didn't even raise his voice. He simply drove his car, often a small, unassuming Volkswagen Beetle, along the freeways of Southern California, looking for someone, a teenage boy, a young man, someone walking alone, someone vulnerable. Sometimes they were hitchhikers, sometimes runaways, sometimes just kids trying to get home. Kearney would pull up beside them, offer a ride, flash a friendly smile. No threats, no pressure. Just a soft-spoken man with a calm demeanor. Once the victim was inside, Kearney would drive for miles. There was no yelling, no signs of violence, just conversation, silence, radio hum. Then without warning, he would reach under the seat, a small caliber pistol, a single shot to the temple. Fast, efficient, clean. Death came in an instant. No struggle, no fight, and that was just the beginning. Kearney didn't just kill, he disposed. After the murder, he would drive the lifeless body back to his home. There, in complete silence and privacy, he would dismember the corpse with surgical precision. Sometimes he kept the body for hours, sometimes days. He would bathe, eat dinner, sleep, just feet away from the remains. Then, under the cover of night, he'd pack the parts into trash bags and dump them along the freeways, deserts, ditches, parking lots. Always far enough, always cold, always quiet. The media didn't know what to make of it. The LAPD had no suspect, no witnesses, no motive, just a growing pile of nameless bodies showing up beside California's busiest highways. They called him a ghost, but he wasn't. He was home. He was sleeping soundly in Redondo Beach next to his partner. He was going to work every morning, and then hunting every weekend. What made Kearney different wasn't just how he killed. It was why. Not lust, not rage, but control. The control of life and death, the control of silence. He once told detectives, "They were just too noisy, I needed quiet." Chilling words from a man who, for years, fooled everyone into believing he was harmless. But the bodies were piling up, and eventually someone would start connecting the dots. By the mid-1970s, Los Angeles had a problem, a terrifying one. Bodies were showing up regularly along the highways. Young men, teen boys, found in garbage bags, dismembered, mutilated, shot, strangled. dumped like trash. The press coined a term, the Freeway Killer. The city panicked. Was it one man? Was he unstoppable? No one knew that three separate monsters were prowling the same streets at the same time. Patrick Kearney, William Bonin, Randy Kraft, each with their own twisted ritual, each leaving behind a trail of horror across Southern California. And yet, they were completely unaware of one another. For police, it was chaos. The victims all shared similarities: young, male, often gay or transient. But the methods varied just enough to create confusion. Bonin strangled his victims and often raped them. Kraft drugged, tortured, and posed them post-mortem. Kearney, he was clean, efficient, fast. He used a gun, rarely raped, and almost always dismembered the body after death. It took years for investigators to realize they weren't chasing a single killer, but multiple predators, hiding in the same shadows. Imagine the nightmare. 3 serial killers, operating at the same time, in the same region, targeting the same type of victim. It wasn't just a wave of violence, it was a storm. And in the middle of it all, Patrick Kearney kept moving. Quietly, silently, always one step ahead. His victims had no voice, no family to report them missing, no names in the papers, just numbers on a growing list of dead. The city's LGBTQ+ community, still living in the shadows of fear and discrimination, received little protection. Runaways were dismissed. Hitchhikers were ignored. The silence worked in Kearney's favor. The same silence he so deeply craved was now shielding him. Patrick Kearney didn't leave evidence. He didn't talk. He didn't slip. And without a witness or confession, there was no case. Until one day, he made a mistake. July 1977. A young man named John LeMay, 17 years old, went missing after telling his family he was going to meet someone in Redondo Beach. His body was discovered just days later, dismembered, dumped in garbage bags near a remote desert area. The brutality was consistent with other unsolved murders. But this time, police had a lead. John had told a friend the name of the man he was going to visit. David Hill, Patrick Kearney's longtime partner. When detectives knocked on their door, the house was empty. Kearney and Hill had vanished. What happened next shocked everyone. Just a few days later, Patrick Kearney and David Hill walked into a police station in Riverside County and calmly turned themselves in. There was no fight, no chase, no courtroom drama. Patrick sat down with detectives and began to talk, not about John LeMay, but about everything. He confessed to 28 murders, immediately, voluntarily, in detail. He remembered their faces, their ages, their names, where he picked them up, how he killed them, where he left their bodies. He described the dismemberment like he was reading a shopping list. He showed no emotion, no regret, no fear, just precision, just facts. "I wanted quiet," he said. "They were too noisy." Detectives sat in disbelief. This wasn't the monster they expected. He wasn't delusional. He wasn't proud. He was just empty. What disturbed them the most wasn't the murders. It was his calmness. They asked him, "Why are you confessing now?" Kearney simply replied, "I'm tired of running. I'm tired of hiding." David Hill was questioned extensively, but after weeks of investigation, police found no evidence he had participated in the killings. He was released and never charged. Kearney, he accepted everything. No lawyer, no deal, no trial. He pleaded guilty and disappeared into the prison system. The city had spent years hunting a ghost, but in the end, the ghost came to them, and he spoke, not with pride, but with the cold, sterile honesty of a man who had made peace with the monster inside him. There was no trial, no headlines, no courtroom theatrics, just a man quietly accepting his fate. Patrick Kearney pleaded guilty to 21 counts of murder. He was sentenced to 21 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. He didn't fight. He didn't speak. He simply nodded and was taken away. To this day, Patrick Kearney resides at Mule Creek State Prison, California. He rarely speaks to anyone, he's never shown remorse, and he's never requested an appeal. He's become what he always seemed to crave: silent, invisible, forgotten. In a time where killers often chase the spotlight, where serial murder becomes spectacle, Patrick Kearney remains an anomaly. He didn't kill to be famous. He didn't collect trophies. He didn't write letters to the press. He just killed, over and over, quietly, cleanly, without emotion, without mercy. There's something uniquely disturbing about Patrick Kearney. He wasn't a raving lunatic. He wasn't violent in public. He wasn't crazy. He was the kind of man who smiled politely at neighbors, paid his bills on time, kept a clean house, and stored body parts in trash bags. There were no warning signs, no cries for help, no evil glare in his eyes, just silence. And maybe that's what makes him so terrifying, because sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones who never make a sound. Still serving his sentence, and still one of the most prolific and forgotten serial killers in American history. His name is Patrick Kearney, and he will never leave prison, but he will also never speak again.